So today's special guest is Daniel Thomas Hind. Daniel is the founder and CEO of EvolutionEat, a transformational health coaching company that helps high performers master their diets and build healthy eating habits that last forever. A student of self-mastery, world-class coach, and serial entrepreneur, Daniel has helped hundreds of entrepreneurs become peak performers while building and selling a number of businesses over his career. And I'm crazy excited to have Daniel on the show today just because I love his message and I love what he's teaching, and I know that a lot of people need it. So Daniel, welcome to the show.
Skylar, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course, I appreciate you coming on, and I would love if you could just start us off by sharing a little bit about yourself. You have a pretty interesting story, and there's definitely a lot of life lessons in there. So yeah, if you just want to kind of speak on where you come from.
Woof. Yeah, where to begin? Well, I've been doing this entrepreneur thing for about 7 years now. My journey towards down this path was one that a lot of millennials, I think, come to when they decide this life path for themselves, which is that I was a professional. For me, I was what most people come to realize is that the life that they had been promised or had worked towards um, wasn't going to deliver on those expectations. And so for me, I was a professional academic growing up. I didn't have a lot of like rules around the home, but the one thing that I did have was a contract with my parents to be like an exceptional student.
Mm.
And I was praised for my intellect from a very young age, since for as long as I can remember. And I was rewarded for that. I accomplished a lot within that domain, and I went to one of those quote unquote special high schools. It was like all scholarship. It was a big deal for where I grew up to be accepted into this school. And then I went on to Georgetown, was going to become a lawyer. That was always the path that I kind of defaulted into because I was a really good writer, kind of charismatic, could make a lot of arguments, And when it got to the point to choose, like, what do you actually want to do? I was paralyzed with fear, because I knew that doing that would lead to a lot of unhappiness, but not doing it would also lead to a lot of unhappiness, because I had never really learned how to make choices for myself. I had learned how to do very well inside of a system where these external demands are placed upon you, and then I'd knock them out the park, but they weren't really self-generated. They were given to me. And I think a lot of why I'm explaining that in details, because I know, especially based on a lot of the people that I work with, I know that a lot of people have faced similar challenges where it's like they've been taught what to do their whole lives, and the distinction between what's actually authentic and true for them versus what they've been told to believe is really hard to discern. And when you start edging it, when you start testing the boundaries of those, it can get really uncomfortable, because your whole life has been built, and your whole belief structure has been built to support one thing when maybe it's not really true. So I decided not to become a lawyer, but that then catapulted me onto this path that for 5-6 years outside of college was just tremendously challenging. I mean, I experienced abject depression, had some substance abuse issues, made a lot of stupid life choices for myself, because I was just lost, super lost. And without going into all of it, I hit my version, or a version certainly, of rock bottom. And from that lowest of lows, decided that I was only going to do things that I cared about. Like if life wasn't really working too well for me at that phase, so I really didn't have anything to lose. So I just decided, okay, I'm going to just do whatever I actually want to do, whatever is true for me. And no joke, within a few weeks of that, people started asking me to coach them, because the one consistent thing throughout my 20s, post-college, was my relationship to diet and lifestyle and health. And when I say relationship, I mean like my devotion to it as a life practice. It was really the only thing that anchored me during a period of my life that was very chaotic, very confusing, and extremely unstable, both financially and emotionally. And so people asked me like to coach them, and I didn't know I didn't know what that meant. My idea of coaching at the time was like personal training, and I definitely wasn't a personal trainer, and nor did I want to be. Um, but when I kept getting asked, it was like it felt like the universe was like knocking on my door. So I eventually said yes. And when I got into the coaching, it wasn't just around nutrition and diet coaching, because what became clear very soon into it was that there's so much more that's going on under the hood that influences our decision making when it comes to like what to eat, what not to eat. A lot of us already have a pretty good understanding of like, this is categorically healthy and this isn't. So why do we choose the unhealthy thing over and over and over again? Or why do we overeat? Why are these patterns so deeply ingrained in us? And asking those questions got me really curious. And, you know, hence my career as as the CEO of EvolutionEat began. And for a number of years, it was just me coaching people one-on-one, but slowly I started to build up, an online presence and started putting my work out there. And from there, we started building some programs, and then group coaching programs. And we've just been building out year after year after year. And every year it's been doubling or tripling in success. And now we have a team to support our members. And it's God, even still that this has become my norm, and I wouldn't possibly know any other way. It's still something that I'm incredibly grateful for. And because it was going so differently for a very long time, for what felt like an impossibly long time. And I'm just very honored that this is my life and I get to do this really important work.
Yeah, and that's phenomenal. And I think that's like one of the things I just love about what you're doing is it is this, first of all, just your attitude about it. Like you're here to give thanks and you're here to help people. And you're not like your sole mission isn't to make $1 million or $2 million or beyond that. But the other side of it that I love is the mindset end, and not even the mindset end, but attacking the emotions and really digging deep, like you said, under the hood.
Yeah.
Because most people out there, they'll give you a diet plan and they'll say, well, you have to eat this instead of this. But the reality is, like, especially today, it's mostly compulsive eating and eating off of emotion.
Yeah.
So was that something that you figured out early on your own, or was that something that you struggled with in your own life?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I mean, part of the reason why I'm doing this work and I'm the founder of this sort of company is because it's all inside of me. It's all stuff that I've struggled with myself as well. I grew up, I'm an only child and come from a predominantly Italian family. And culturally, the Italians are like big on food and eating and celebration. And so that was pushed on me from a young age. And, I was given a lot of love from my Italian mama, and I love her to death. And food was part of the equation. And because I was an only child, and because both my parents worked full time, I was left to myself a lot. So, food became fun. It became a friend, a very dependable friend. I could depend on my friend to make me feel a certain way. And so I would develop what I called an abundant relationship with food. So it's no surprise that I grew up a fat kid. I wasn't obese. I was very active. My dad is British, and thanks to him, I was always very active in soccer, played a lot of sports. So it wasn't like debilitating by any stretch, and I don't want to come across that way. But, that fear of taking off your shirt in the summertime, hating being shirts versus skins, hating going to the pool or the beach or whatever because you're fat and kids make fun of you, like that, even to this day, even I can get down to 5% body fat and still feel a little uncomfortable taking my shirt off, right? Like that,
Mm.
that is so etched into my identity that, I know what it's like, and it's really shaped, uh, who I am and what I deem as important. So, so I grew up a fat kid, but what what I bring to this work that I can very clearly piece back to my childhood is this idea of relying on food or depending on food as some sort of emotional support in your life, right? And um, and I really believe that so many of us make choices when it comes to eating out of our emotion, out of having a certain set of emotional needs. A lot of them are impulsive, like I'm bored, I'm stressed, I'm tired, I'm sad, I'm whatever, and it's like, just got to do something to take care of that, right? Obviously a misapplication of food's purpose, but there's also deeper layers to that. Like if you notice yourself inside of a pattern of overeating late at night because you're really bored or because you don't know what to do with your life and you don't want to ask yourself the question, or you have asked yourself the question but come up with blanks and you don't know how to source yourself. So what do? Well, it's easier to just eat something, and it kind of becomes an automatic. Same goes if you're lonely. I'm single and I live alone, and I know that sometimes I eat because I just don't have anything else to do, right? Like that still comes up. That's still that even though I do this as a career, and I'm still working on myself, like those old tendencies still rear their head from time to time. So, we all have emotional needs. Some of them are impulsive, some of them are way deeper. And it's not what I don't ever want to, what I teach my students and my clients is like to not make those emotional needs wrong, but to acknowledge that they're there. And then what we do is to help them develop other practices, other habits in their life to give them what they need, things that aren't eating, right? And typically things that are healthier for you. But this all goes to show that this is a lot more complex than just basically giving somebody a diet and saying, here's what to eat, here's what not to eat. Like, should be pretty easy, right? Like, yeah, on the surface it should be pretty easy. We all have a general understanding of like, this is healthy, this isn't. But there's all this stuff going on emotionally, psychologically, that's having us choose the disempowered path or the unhealthy food time and again. And that's what I'm interested in, because clearly dieting doesn't work, right? The dieting industry has ballooned in the past, every decade more money is poured into it. So it's well into the 10-figure range now, the dieting industry. And yet, if you look at the lack of health trends, like our obesity rates, diabetes rates, they're growing, right?
Mm.
So if the intended solution for lack of health, if we're pouring more money into the intended solution for lack of health, that is dieting, but it's not only not working, it's getting worse, then clearly that's a big problem.
Yeah.
And that really motivates me. That really fuels me because that so many people are affected by this. I mean, think about just general state of like big problems in life. Like our health is fundamental, elemental to your experience of life. So when we talk about peak performance and mastery and mindfulness and all this, it's like, what could be more important than developing a healthy relationship with yourself through developing a healthy relationship with health? And you can't be healthy without having a healthy relationship with food. You
Absolutely.
can't have one without the other. So that's really what the focus of our coaching and our programs is all about.
Yeah. And there's a ton I want to unpack from that. The first thing that kind of popped up, so you were talking about how we sometimes choose eating over being alone with our thoughts and like thinking through things and working through things. And I just had that realization a couple weeks ago that like it's the same thing as technology. Like the reason so many people
Oh
are
yeah.
addicted to their smartphones is because they can easily pick them up and pass the time rather than thinking about what's going on in their own life and working through these issues.
Yeah. Yes, it's this culture that where the expectation is that everything is on demand, and you are taught. I mean, you're taught that you should just not only should you, but you easily can distract yourself all the time. Technology, people can't even go to the toilet anymore without bringing their phone. And I'm just as like, I am often walking around my apartment with my phone in my hand, even my own apartment, let alone outside. I never leave the place without my phone. But even around my own apartment, I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Right? Like I'm addicted to this thing, and it's not even it's almost beyond an addiction. It's like, it feels like it's now an appendage. And if I'm without it, then something is wrong. Right. So it's living inside of this culture, society, where the expectation is that you can just distract yourself all the time. You're always living inside of other worlds, and you don't really need to look at your own shit. You
Yeah.
don't have to. And food is just the same. And the fact that we can get food now through the apps, through everything, extremely easily, and you don't need an app to get, to go around to the local gas station or whatever. There's food. Your drug of choice, whether you relate to it this way or not, is right around the corner, and it's ubiquitous, and there's nothing weird about it. People push it your way, in fact, and we use it to celebrate everything, right? Unhealthy food, it's a celebration. Great. You can be sure that there's a lot of shit there to be eaten, right? It's going to be pushed your way. So it's culturally implicit as well. And the thing that distinguishes like an eating addiction from other addictions is that you have to eat.
Yeah.
So there's also the fact that you just have to do that in order to survive. So it becomes really complicated. Again, why this isn't so easy, and why so many of us have a lot of trouble with it. The problem is that a lot of people don't want to talk about it. See, a lot of people, we can talk about it when it's at the surface level. Like, oh God, I'm so out of shape, I need to lose weight. Like, everybody talks about losing weight or having to do this new diet or trying this new thing. And we love watching other people like be fit and watch fitness videos and feel really motivated. Like, so like we can keep it, we can talk about it and look at it, but only at the surface. Nobody wants to really talk about, the fact that they're often standing in front of their fridge, shoveling food inside their mouth, or they're addicted to sugar and they're like snacking all throughout the day, and they can't stop themselves. Or like, they're pristine during the day, but come night, they just lose it. They can't help themselves. They go to the fast food place, and then they go to another place, then they order something on their app. Or, even like my executive one-on-one clients who are traveling all the time, and they're always in a hotel room, and it's like they get room service, and then they get a bottle of wine with the room service, and then they order room service a second time, and then a third time, and all of a sudden it's 2 a.m, and they're just down that path of like pushing food in. And it's, again, it's so many of us deal with this, and it's and we then deal with the residual embarrassment and shame around it. Like, we feel really shitty about ourselves. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times my clients have said to me, why do I do this? I should know, like, I know better. I shouldn't do that sort of thing. Like it's so stupid of me that I can't get this right, time and time again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think people feel a lot of shame around it, and therefore they don't want to actually talk about the real underlying issues. So we have a culture obsessed with looking good and working out and all that stuff. And we can talk about weight. We're obsessed with losing weight as well, but nobody really wants to talk about, why do you need to lose weight? Like what's causing you to be overweight, right? Like, what are your patterns and habits and tendencies, and what are we not talking about, really? Right.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah. So
yeah.
it is like, it's tough, and I could go on and vent because this is something I'm super passionate about, of like companies putting all of these addictive ingredients in their foods and making it even harder for us to break free of these patterns. But I do want to spend a lot of time today really diving into that mindset aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, like, plain and simple, because there's so much, like, what pieces of advice do you have for people out there who have this unhealthy relationship with their food, or who've, they have these tendencies to overeat at night, or to be addicted to sugar, or
Mm.
anything that's really detrimental to their health?
Yeah, yeah. Great question. So, first of all, if well, if you're having trouble, well, okay, there's two big pieces that I really want to drive home. The first is that, I and this is my belief, so take it for what it is, but I do not believe that you can be successful in life if you're not healthy. Right? Like, if we think of, if a lot of us are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If we're not, then it's a theory of, excuse me, psychological and emotional health predicated on fulfilling innate human needs from bottom up, culminating in self-actualization at the very top. So at the bottom of this triangle is your physical health and well-being. So it's really the bedrock of leading a meaningful and productive life. So, like, no matter how successful you get in other areas of life, really what I'm talking about is money, because a lot of us are driven by money and creating financial abundance, and that's great, but, like, not at the expense of your health. Because even if you get that, you're and you're not being mindful of your health, and you're not working on this, then, like, you're going to be out of alignment with yourself.
Mm.
You know what it feels like to be out of alignment. And when it's on your body and the choices that you're making around your body, that's the lack of success. So if you're driven by success, and that's fine, so am I. It's like, if you're not actively working on your health and always working on it, then you're not practicing success in your life. And so with that, because it is fundamental, let's look at it as a practice, as a lifelong practice. And here's coming to the main piece, where this whole dieting industry gets it wrong, and where people approach it with the wrong mindset, is that we think of healthy eating as a goal that we have to accomplish.
Yes.
And so, to spell that out for anybody who's like, what does that mean? A goal that we have to accomplish, meaning it's usually around weight loss, right? I have to lose X pounds by this date. So we take things on to create these results. And what ends up happening is that most of us actually end up not creating the results. But even if you do, what you've learned is you've only learned how to satisfy the results that you're trying to create. You've a constrained, it's a constraint that doesn't apply to the rest of life. So it's kind of like cramming for a test. You might pull an all-nighter and wake up the next morning and just, like, spill your brain onto the page, or not wake up, just go right into the test and spill your brains onto the page because you've spent the whole night studying, but then, like, forget everything the next day. And then by finals time, you've got to study all over again because you didn't learn a damn thing. So instead of approaching our health like a diet where we, like, cram and put a bunch of energy into it and then, like, break down and give up and forget, what if it was instead a skill that you practice and develop forever, right? Like without end. Because the truth is that you don't just want to lose weight and be healthy for, the next 6 weeks. You want that forever. You want to feel that command of and control of your body and your choices forever. So the whole paradigm shift is to start thinking of your health and your eating habits, your diet, however you want to refer to it, as a skill, right? And if you look at how people learn any other skill, like an instrument, learning a language, etc., you see that there's a whole lifetime of practice and improvement and development that can occur, right? It's not just do it for a certain set of time and then forget about it. It's if you want to maintain your standard of skill, you need to keep practicing. And if you stop practicing, you like your ability deteriorates, right? So it's a downgrade. So you got to keep practicing. And there, from that level of awareness, what my company helps people do is develop a lifestyle. I call it a life system of health, starting with the foundation of healthy eating, because as we've already talked about, we have to eat anyways. It has the greatest impact on your health. And there's so much loadedness into it with our psychology, our mindset, our emotions, all of it, that it's a great place to start practicing. From there, we can generate other practices, other habits from that awareness. So it's like, if you were learning how to play the piano, you wouldn't just want to learn how to play the piano to play one song or one note. You would want to be able to play infinite songs. You would want to develop your own style, right? You would want to be creating your songs, not just playing other people's, right? There's a whole that in order to take that on, you start with learning one note, then you have to understand the music, and then you have to, in order to get better, if you're alien, if you're a novice and the whole thing is alien to you at the beginning, it's like you're going to have to make a shit ton of mistakes in order to get better, right? There's no way of getting better than by practicing, screwing up thousands and thousands of times, probably recruiting the help of an instructor who knows what he or she is doing to guide you and to help you push past your own plateaus, because you just got so much to learn, right? And like it might suck to be bad, but you wouldn't necessarily identify with your mistakes, right? Like if you mess up a song, you might say like, God, I should be better. And that's frustrating, but I'm not some abject loser because I can't play this bridge of a song. But when people mess up on their diet, it's like the world is over and I might as well eat until Monday so that like I can feel so shitty about myself that I'll necessarily feel motivated to start again, right? And it's like, what if we didn't identify talk about a fixed mindset when you identify with your failures like that. People approach this whole dieting thing with a fixed mindset, which has you believing that you need to be perfect in order to be successful. And since perfection is impossible, which we all know, but if you think about perfection inside of a skill development paradigm, then it's also, not only is it impossible, but it's like not even a consideration. We all know that we're going to mess up. So like it takes the pressure off of having to be so right. And what we're then helping our people do, our members do is to really learn about how to make this real for them, right? So habit building, overcoming old habits, learning what diet works for you, because it's one thing to watch, some motivational guy or gal online and be like, God, I want to do what she does. But it's another when you apply it to yourself. It might not make sense for you, and it might not make sense for where you are right now, right? Everything is an evolution. Just like, you want to be able to play Mozart, great. But when you're just starting out, can you even play a chord, right? So it's like, know where you are now versus where you want to be. It's good to know where you want to be, but we can't start where you want to be. And that's the last thing I'll say about this, is that a lot of people approach their diets by starting where they want to end up. So a lot of people start by like exercising 5 days a week, eating 200 to 500 calories below deficit or below their current baseline, being pristine with their meal prepping and their meal planning, everything laid out and like never messing up. It's like, great. I want that for you too. But if you haven't demonstrated any of that consistently up until right now, do you really think that come Monday, you'll be able to just put that all into practice? No, it's going to take time. Habits take a while to form. And if you're starting all of these new things at once, you're going to overwhelm because you literally haven't created the neural pathways to orient yourself as a sort of person who wakes up and then just naturally, intuitively does these things, right? Every single decision, just like every new note that you're playing, is massively difficult and weird feeling at the beginning, right? Like you like don't know how to organize yourself in relation to the instrument. It's the same thing when you're learning how to build these habits inside of your life. You just because you decide, oh, I want to do it, there's so much that has to happen internally, and then from that place that you have to make choices to support on the outside. Like you have to then wake up at a certain time to give yourself more time to prepare for it. You have to get comfortable going to the gym in the morning before work, and that like not throwing everything else off in your life. It takes time and effort, and we have to honor that truth. We have to honor the process of your development as we would any other skill. It's not some sort of 6-week program that you can just rush through. You can, but it's not going to stick. And if it's not going to stick, that means it's unsustainable. And if it's unsustainable, that means it's impossible. Unsustainable is a synonym for impossible. So ask yourself how many times you've tried to do this way, to do this in an unsustainable way, and you're basically writing yourself into failure. And then repeated failure leads to hopelessness. And that's what really sucks. People start to feel hopeless that they can't do this. And I believe it's because there's just not a popularized system for how to do it the right way. So that's what my mission is with EvolutionEat, is to really develop this life system of health that takes some damn time to practice and to put into place. But yeah, I could keep talking forever, but I feel like I've just been talking for the past hour without it. So I'll pause. I'll zip it for a second.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's all good. Everything said there was super, super valuable. That's another thing. Like, I love how you have a 6-month program, and that's like so out there. And I've talked to marketers and everything like that, and they always say like, no, you should have, you should have a shorter program. You want to get people results as fast as you can. But like with nutrition, with a lot of other stuff, that's just, like you said, it's not sustainable. It's impossible.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, like I can get anybody results in 3 months. But what I really care about is developing an entire life where you don't have to think about this anymore. And it's the same way, like once you can play the piano, you're not thinking about every choice you make. It's just intuitively where you go, and you like going there. Like piano players who started when they were 8 years old and they still play when they're 60. Why do they play when they're 60? Not because their parents told them to when they were 8, but because they love it. You know, it's something that they identify as a piano player and identify with somebody who channels and their emotions and expresses themselves through the piano, right? It's a really productive relationship that you have with yourself through this instrument. And that's my goal, is to help people develop whatever a healthy lifestyle means to them, so that becomes intuitive, and not just intuitive, but something that they look forward to. It's one thing to go on a diet because you tell yourself that you have to lose weight and like willpower yourself through. It's another thing if you just do it because it's fun and you like it and you like yourself as somebody, as a healthy person who does healthy things for him or herself, right?
Yeah.
So that's a key distinction of being able to identify as a healthy person who does healthy things, and like loving the process, loving the experience of it, feeling like you're expressing yourself through it.
Yeah, it's like looking at the donut, and instead of saying, oh, like I can't have that donut, this sucks, and saying I'm living a healthier lifestyle now. I'm going to feel better. I'm going to have more mental clarity. I'm going to have more stamina. Like, it's a blessing.
Yeah. Like, and do I want to be the sort of person who gets like his or her jollies off from donuts on Wednesday afternoons, like, and it's not a judgment. It's like, look, if that's causing you that much excitement, then that's something to really look at. You have an opportunity to look at that and to say like, wow, what's off in my life that I'm putting all of this energy and baggage onto a donut? Seriously, right? Like, man, if that donut's getting you that stressed out or that amped up or that, like, woof, let's look at that for a second, because that something's out of alignment there,
Yeah.
you
Do you
know?
have like an exercise that you use with your clients or something to help them dive deep and figure out kind of like what that baggage is?
Yeah. I mean, uh, I would have you looking at all of your disempowered habits around food. Like, they tend to be pretty big, obvious categories. Like late night eating is one of them, um, or incessant sugar snacking throughout the day is like, those are the two big ones. On the flip side, it could be the total other end of the spectrum, where you like purposely play the game of how long can you go without eating. People who kind of tend towards the quote unquote eating disorder spectrum, which I have a problem with that word disorder, but that's for another time.
Hmm.
Um, just to notice like what your tendencies are, like what are your main tendencies around food, and then from there just start to dissect. What are the conditions? Are you by yourself? Are you, for example, so for me, if I were to do this exercise, I would say, okay, when do I mostly overeat? Like, there's overeating and then there's really going ham, right? When does that happen? Well, it happens on, historically, it's happened either on weeknights when I have no clear stop time to when I'm working. I've really worked on this part of my life, so I don't do this anymore. But like once upon a time, not very long ago, I would just work, work, work forever, and I would never turn off. And like, I would get to the point where I'd be up so late and so tired that my primary motivation was to like keep going and keep working. And then it's like, do anything to continue working, right? And because I would be tired, I would like eat something because I just wanted to keep going. So yeah, so that would be a pattern that played out consistently. I'm exhausted, I work late, and I want to keep working, I want to keep going. So I would eat to like make me feel good, give me some sort of excitement while I'm overworking myself. And you know I could identify what the emotion is that I want for myself, and the emotion is relief. Like, I want some sort of temporary relief from the struggle of working really hard into the night. And from there, there's then a micro and a macro choice that I would make. So the micro choice is what to do instead in the moment. Like I'm not going to change that whole pattern just because I'm aware of it now, but I can work, but I will work on changing the pattern. That's the macro. The micro is what can I do instead in that moment? Well, I can do a few things. I could go for a walk outside. I could listen to a song. I could whatever, right? I could call a friend if it's not too late. Or I could go to bed, right? That's the obvious one. That's the big one. So the macro choice that I would be working on globally is not not allowing, like creating more boundaries in my life so that I'm not working into midnight on a Wednesday, because as a general practice, because not only not only am I then overeating as a result, but it's throwing everything else off. That means that on Thursday morning, I'm going to be waking up later than I really would have wanted to, which has an impact on the way I show up for my clients, which has an impact on the way that I show up for my team. Or maybe then I don't do my normal workout on Thursday morning, but that has me all feeling screwed up because that's so important to me, right? Or I don't get to do my meditation or something, right? There's a chain of events that happen. So globally, my real thing that I'm working on is implementing more boundaries into my life so that I have clean and clear cutoff times, that I'm going to bed by this time and it doesn't really matter. I'm going to go to bed because that's globally more important to me than getting this one thing done, right? So the macro thing that I'm working on is honoring myself and honoring my morning routine and my night routine, right? That would, of course, solve the problem. But in the moment itself, it's like I can develop a healthier micro habit that will help bridge the gap towards my getting there, right? So going for a walk instead of eating, chocolate would be a healthier option. I'm not saying I shouldn't just placate myself by going on walks and ignoring the bigger thing, which is that I'm habitually overworking, but it's at least a healthier start, and it's cleaner to get there. So, that's one of I could go on for, I could give more examples, but I also don't, I don't want to overspeak either.
Yeah, no, there's a ton there. And obviously, like, even if we wanted to, we couldn't cover everything in one episode.
Yeah.
So say people find that deeper reason, or maybe they don't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, do you have like specific techniques to kind of avoid cravings, or is it literally what you just talked about, like kind of replacing it with something new?
Yeah. So substituting the habit for something new is really big,
Mm,
and it's working on both. It's the micro and the macro that are really important, because the micro is it's the micro habit that we do in the moment itself. The macro is the deeper personal stuff, right? Like in that example, it wasn't so emotionally deep, but at the same time it could be, because I haven't been in so if you want to go the full transparency, like, here we go. I haven't been in a real relationship in 5 years, since my last very serious one. And part of my workaholism, that I've overcome a lot of the workaholism, but not all of it by a long shot. I'm not letting myself stay up until 1 a.m. on Wednesdays anymore, but I definitely work too much. Part of my workaholism is a direct result of my not being inside of a relationship, right? So if I really wanted to work on that, then I would have to look at like that part of myself that has been avoiding relationship in my life, and realize that my lack of relationship feeds my workaholism, which also feeds other unhealthy habits in my life, like overeating sometimes, for example, right? So you can go really deep into this. And
mm,
then from there, talking about this, writing about this. I mean, what we have our people do is we're expressing this stuff on a daily basis. You're not just going through our program by yourself. You're doing it with a coach and with a community. And what we're having you practice is literally expressing this stuff. What we talked about at the beginning of this podcast was how a lot of people feel embarrassed and shameful around this overeating stuff and how it shows up for them. And we can talk about the surface level, but we don't really go deep. So just being able to talk about it has you then generate solutions for yourself. Whereas if you just leave it in here, it doesn't have any feedback against which you can now create new ideas. Like, you've kind of exhausted your own ideas of things by a certain point, and it just and the context inside your brain is really mean and denigrating, right? Like
mm,
you go out of your way to denigrate yourself. And so instead of having that repeated conversation where you just crush yourself over and over again, let's talk about it. Let's let it out. Let's express ourselves, right? Let's get into the practice of expressing ourselves so that we can then generate new ideas and create better solutions that are more integrous and more in alignment with what you really want for yourself. Because it might not be utterly clear. Like, I've been doing this work for a while, but it might not be utterly clear to somebody that their not being in a relationship is feeding their overeating habits, right? Especially if it's like a chain, if it's like a line of events or a line of association where it's like living alone, or living alone, being alone, feeds workaholism, which is a reason, like an avoidance of relationship, right? Like, wow, not everybody would be able to just kind of come up with that by
mm.
themselves. So being in conversation around this stuff is really important, which is why when you practice and you develop a new skill, you typically don't do it by yourself. You typically have some sort of instructor or an expert or a coach or whatever who you're working with, so that you can be in conversation around it. Like, if you're developing a new language, you literally have to, you can't just study and write it. You have to speak it. It's the same thing. You have to be speaking it, doing it, practicing it, manifesting it on the outside. So if you're going to go through a transformational life experience, like transforming your relationship with food and health, you can't just do that in a silo by yourself. I mean, I suppose you can. I shouldn't say you can't do it, but it's very challenging to do
Mm,
anything like that by yourself, especially because the deeper you go, the more you'll see there's a lot of emotions that are influencing us, and that are having an impact on why we are or aren't doing certain things, or are or aren't making certain bigger life choices. You know, it's no surprise that a lot of our members who do our work with us for a while, they then feel empowered in a way to make huge life choices. This isn't just about weight loss. This is like feeling empowered to move across the country, start that business, divorce that spouse who you've been in an unhappy, unfulfilled marriage, you know, go travel the world for the first time in your life. Um, when you practice the habit every day of showing up for yourself, of filling your own cup first, of giving yourself health, it has such a massive impact, not just on how you look and how you feel, but in what you then believe is possible for your life, right? Because you're developing this practice of improvement. You're developing a practice of energy, of energizing, of opening up, of expansion, right? Confidence. What do you feel when you feel healthy and you feel like, God, I'm on my game? Like, you feel like possibility. So when you practice that, you enter into the rest of your life with a confidence of like, well, I actually can do that thing that I've been telling myself I can't do forever. I actually could move across the country, or I could start that business, because I've just been, before I had no practice of health with self, but now it's like I'm doing it every day. Part of my identity is somebody who really takes care of himself. So of course I can go take care of this other thing. It might be big, feel bigger or big and scary, but like I just tackled this one thing and I'm doing it every day. And I also know that it's probably going to take some time for me to make that choice. It's not just going to be like one fell swoop and done. So I'm more liable to taking on like a long-term approach in creating that result in my life, as opposed to just wishing it would happen, which is what a lot of us do. We end up dreaming our lives because we just wish that they would just snap into place, right? But nothing really works. There's almost nothing operates through a lottery paradigm. It's often through, you know, a lot of effort and time and perhaps some work. But it doesn't feel like work when you actually look forward to it and enjoy it and feel fulfilled by it.
hmm. That, man, amazing. And I honestly wish we could talk about this stuff like for hours. Um, I do want to shift over right before we wrap up. I know you have like a really, really epic morning routine, and I would love to just hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I live in Santa Monica, which is a part of Los Angeles, right by the water. I live like 2 blocks from the beach, and every morning I wake up at 4:45, and after like basic self-care and bodily management, I run down to the beach, which, yes, is 2 blocks away, but there's actually this highway that separates the beach from the land, and so you have to cross over this landmass. It's about, give or take, a mile run down to the actual front of the water, and so I'm running there. It's still dark, and I plop myself down right in front of the water's edge, where the water kind of curls up to the sand, and I meditate under the stars, under the moon, and with the Santa Monica Pier in the background. So I'm not sure if you ever played Tony Hawk, the video game, or have ever seen shots of Los Angeles. They usually show the Santa Monica Pier. So that's like off in the distance, and because it's dark, it's all lit up. It's just this really funky scene. And I meditate. I meditate for like probably 30 minutes, and then as I'm complete, I stare off into the ocean. I take my shirt off. Um, and I just trudge out into the freezing cold water by myself. There's nobody else around, except for the few homeless people who are sleeping on the beach. It's cold, it's dark, it's weird, it's scary. You know, despite having been doing this for three years now, it's never comfortable, and it's always scary. Like it's just you, it's yeah, there's just this like intense confusion that like, why are you doing this inside? But it's so awesome at the same time. It's visceral, it's guttural. And what happens, and what the is that I experience this breakthrough every morning. It's like breaking through that edge of discomfort into the bliss of it, right? Like after that initial like, oh, it's freezing cold, and you can barely get your breathing intact, and then it's like I dive under a number of times, and eventually after diving under like over and over and over again, I make myself stay under so that the water is just up to my neck, and my shoulders are submerged. Like you break through, and all of a sudden that which was uncomfortable and scary and freezing is like beautiful and blissful. And it's a really powerful metaphor for life, I think. And it's God, it's just an epic way to start the day, literally every day. And the lesson that I therefore wake up to every day is like, to make it as cliche as possible, as Ryan Holiday said it best, is that the obstacle is the way. It's like the thing that you fear, or that you fear the most, or that the difficult thing to do, is also that which is going to feed you and fill you and fuel you and give you life. And so I get to start that day, every day basically with that really important reminder, and then I get to craft the rest of my day from that from that awareness. And it's been just a hugely life-changing relationship that I've built, that with the beach in the morning. And it's my time, nobody else is there. And I'm not like a beach, even if my hair's all ponytailed up right now, but like I've got long hair now. I'm so LA compared to my New York days. I look so LA, but I'm not really like a beach guy. I don't go to the beach for fun. I don't have any other relationship with the beach. I don't surf. I don't do any of that. That's my time though, in the morning. And it's purely my time. So so from there, I still have, it's still so early in the morning when I'm done that I then run home, and like I said, I get to create the rest of my day from that place. And it's helped me accomplish a lot that I have in these past few years.
Love it, man. The phenomenal. I can't even imagine. The ocean is like one of my biggest fears, and the ocean at night is like the biggest fear. It's insane.
It's weird. Yeah. Like I said, it never gets comfortable. And, a few times I've come across, I've crossed paths with sea animals, like a sea lion, or a seal, dolphins. And it's, it's terrifying, because I imagine the worst, and I see a dolphin fin coming out of the water, the first time
Man.
that happened, I freaked out, and I did everything that you're not supposed to do. And I just like ran and splashed, and it was like, get me out of here. So, it's hard to do in the dark. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, absolutely. Insane. Before we wrap up, I have some rapid fire questions. And before that, you have a free course on mastering your diet and lifestyle, right?
Yes, I do. If you go to EvolutionEat, that's all one word, eat.com/join, the word join, then you can sign up for that. And yeah, we used to sell this course for like $200, and we decided, you know what? For us, coaching is our business. And so let's give this away for people to really get acclimated with our philosophy and with our principles, and to start getting to work on themselves with wherever they're at right now. It's a really great distillation and simplification of our main of our main ideas and how we approach this work. So I encourage anybody who's gotten anything out of this podcast to check it out. It's totally yours for free. And if you wanted to ever set up a free coaching call, there's a bunch of links to do that inside of the program as well.
That's incredible, man. And I'm going to throw that in the show notes. And I encourage anyone who's, if you got something out of this or anything, definitely go check that out. So a couple of rapid fire questions. First of all, where can people find you?
EvolutionEat.com, the EvolutionEat Instagram. I have a personal Instagram as well, but I pretty much never use it. I'm not much for social media, despite people telling me for years that I should be. For my team has helped me with the EvolutionEat stuff for the Instagram. So yeah, either of those two places. You can email us through the website or DM us through the Instagram channel.
Perfect. Do you have a favorite book?
Oh yeah. My favorite fiction book is, I've got a bunch, but historically it's been The Sun Also Rises. And actually I have the last line. I'm for anybody who's listening, like this doesn't make a difference. And for anybody who's watching, it probably doesn't make a difference either. I have one tattoo, and the tattoo is the last line of The Sun Also Rises by Hemingway. And the line is, "Isn't it pretty to think so?" And for me, this quote is a reminder of a younger version of myself who lived his life dreaming about all that he was capable of. I used to be the sort of person who would think, oh, isn't it pretty to think so? Instead of being a man of action and going out and creating it. So it's a reminder of that younger part of me, the dreamer, to put his dreams into action and to do something about it.
I love it, man. Amazing. And then I have a little segment on the show called My Current Obsession. And I want to know if there's anything that you are currently obsessed with. And it could have nothing to do with food. It could be a person, a place, a weird.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, I'm obsessed. I've recently, within the past 3 months, become obsessed with marathon running. I've never been a long distance runner ever. Up until 3 months ago, the longest I ever ran was maybe 5 miles. And that would have been like once or twice. I have been a sprinter. I would do like high intensity interval training for training. And, I've had a long and healthy relationship with going to the gym and weightlifting, but I've never been a long distance runner. And apropos of pretty much nothing, perhaps other than listening to David Goggins on a few different interviews, I was like, I'm going to give this thing a go. And I started running. So I gave myself the challenge of running a half marathon without any training. And I did it. And it was so challenging, but so awesome that I decided from there to sign up for a marathon in 6 weeks, which I ran in June. And then it's the end of July now. And just last weekend, I ran my second marathon and I beat my first time by 32 minutes. And I'm only 10 minutes away of qualifying for Boston. So I ran it in 3 hours and 8 minutes, which is pretty fast for somebody who's only been doing this so I've loved it. And my rate of development is pretty good if I do it, if I can be so, if I can say so myself. So I've just totally poured myself into it. And I guess the important thing to share, and why this is obviously an obsession, is that I've given myself the challenge, the long-term challenge, since I'm always about the long-term, of running 50 marathons in 50 states in 50 months. So I've got 2 states down, South Dakota and Oregon, and I've got 48 to go. In 48 months, I'm going to run Idaho in August. And I'm truly obsessed. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, all my friends are sick of me because all I talk about is running all the time. So it's like, if there's I don't know if I've ever been obsessed about anything quite as much as this, to be quite honest.
That's amazing. And then we talked about a lot today, and I'm big on actionable steps. I don't like overwhelming people.
Mm-hmm.
So if there was someone out there who maybe struggles with their eating habits, or they're ready to improve their health, what's one actionable step that you would give them?
The first I would say is go sign up for the course, because it will give you a whole mental mapping for how to go about this. But that's not what you're asking. So that would be number one. Number two, I would say don't approach this like a diet. Instead, let's approach this as a practice. And if we approach it as a practice, we have to get really clear and clean on the fundamentals. So the fundamentals of leading a sustainable and healthy life, with a sustainable and healthy diet, is to make sure that you're eating enough. Most people will start this process by eating way too little, and then they'll confuse their metabolic demands, their metabolic needs, and they'll just psych themselves out. So let's practice the rule of three. 3 healthy meals every day, each meal consisting of a healthy protein, a healthy fat, and a healthy vegetable. Yes, even breakfast. And people are always going to say, like, well, isn't intermittent fasting healthy and this and that? It's like, yes, it is, but it's more of like an expert level strategy. So let's first just establish a baseline of fundamentals. If you're eating 3 healthy meals every day consisting of a healthy protein source, a healthy fat source, and green vegetables, you're doing pretty damn good. That's likely going to have you craving unhealthy foods less, and you'll feel way more empowered to choose no for the office donut than if you're hungry, or like trying to, push yourself through eating really low calorie because you really want to lose weight really quickly. It's like, let's do things the opposite way than we've usually approached this, right? So let's establish some clean and consistent fundamentals and principles from which later on, once that's practiced and easy for you to command, then we can decide, do you need to be eating that much? What works? Maybe that would be a good time to try the no breakfast thing. It's like, let's just remember where we're at along the process, and never sacrifice the fundamentals, because without it, you're never going to be anchored. And if you're not anchored, then you're just floating in the wind.
Hmm. And then do you have a final message for the people listening?
For me, my life's pursuit is mastery of the self. And for me, that's the ultimate form of love, because I noticed how at various points, I noticed how many things I was doing, usually compulsively or impulsively or habitually, or just because it's always been that way, that weren't at all loving to myself and wasn't indicative of the man who I want to be. So I invite you to take on mastery as a way of life, not from a place of performance or like it's supposed to be this way, but from a place of love and honoring yourself and your time on this planet.
Oh man, so awesome, man. Daniel Thomas Hind, everybody. Make sure you check him out. And Daniel, thanks for coming on, man. This has been amazing.
Hey man, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. This was a great conversation. I truly enjoyed myself. Thanks so much, Skylar.
Absolutely.